Hello, guys. This is Coach 23 again. Welcome back to the podcast, Crypto Podcast. Bad takes again. I'm back in a way. I think I did my last episodes a month and a half ago, I believe, after WrestleMania. So I said I'll try, and I guess I have the time right now because I don't have work tonight because it's Memorial Day in the States. So happy Memorial Day, or do you greet people Happy Memorial Day? I think they do. So it's a long holiday a bit for me. Uh, I was supposed to do this episode yesterday, but I got a little bit not really lazy, but I was doing the laundry, the first part of the laundry, and then I did my second part now. Yes, I do laundry. I'm 40 plus. I'm a father of four, a husband of one. So I have priorities as well, and I might be thinking a different backdrop of my picture or of my background because if you can see like tiny action figures here, if you zoom in, there's Galactus from like Epic Heroes, and I have my 375 or 118 figures here. I have my wrestling belt there. So yeah, uh, I just find this a little bit refreshing in a way of the topic that I want to discuss. So if you can see a screenshot of like a document there, random episode, why is it a little bit important to know the business side of pro wrestling? Because let's do a little bit, maybe a 5 minute introduction of business and business side of wrestling, and how I became like not really infatuated and not even inspired, but just want to know in a way. Yeah. So let's go back a little bit in the golden age of rock and wrestling. So during that time, Vince McMahon Sr. had like a handshake deal with other wrestling promoters from like NWA, Jim Crockett Production, AWA, back in the early 80s or even way back in before that, maybe the 70s, 60s, that you don't do shows in our territory. So back then, wrestling was all about territory. What does territory means? So it's like the Jim Crockett or NWA side, they are handling the Carolinas. So North Carolina, South Carolina, the southern states, they do their show there. They don't do their show in the Midwestern side, if I am saying it correctly, like the New York area, Pennsylvania area, Massachusetts or Boston area. They can do that. So you don't cross the territories unless you were like asked to. Or back then, wrestlers can, if like for example the NWA champion can defend a championship in a WWE or Worldwide Wrestling Federation show or WWF show, or vice versa, like uh, superstar Billy Graham can defend a title in an NWA show. The works. That's why they called their world champions touring world champions back then. So fast forward a little bit in the early 80s, Vince McMahon's Jr. now, so Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the Vince McMahon that most people know now, decided to buy the WWF from his father uh, around the early 80s because he has grandeur or grand plans about pro wrestling. He saw in his vision that wrestling can be a national thing. It could be a national, programming. And I believe he bought WWF from his father for like a million or more than a million or so, and his father sold it to him. Uh, he, his father, Vincent J. McMahon or Vincent Vince Senior, said even to him that it's okay. This is way back then, like a little bit of history lesson because I used to have magazines, autobiography books, and whatnot. So even that back then, Vince Senior told Vince Junior that it's okay that you have plans about taking wrestling national, but the Garden will always be the Garden. Hence, WWF, or even now WWE, has always been called New York by the wrestling promoters because once you go to New York, you know you're going to the WWE or WWF. So Garden was like their home base in terms of their home court advance. But they normally back then, even it's weird because they're doing their show in like Allentown, Pennsylvania, for like the normal wrestling programming. It's like their studio, but Madison Square Garden was really their center of business in terms of arenas and stuff. Hence, the first WrestleMania was held in Madison Square Garden. WrestleMania 10 was held in Madison Square Garden. WrestleMania 20 as well, a few Raw, and other show, I believe. Madison Square. Right now, even they announced in July that is it July? Yeah, June or July that their Saturday night's main event will be happening in Madison Square Garden. So it's their like home turf. Then that being said, Vince made Pro Wrestling National. He busted out the handshake deal of his dad to other promoters of don't cross our territories because he signed like deals with MTV, with NBC, with Saturday Night's Main Event again, for like national programming. Meaning, if you have cable or even like local, like I said, NBC, local network, you can watch it everywhere. Unlike back then, it's just territorial based. So it's like even people from the Carolinas, they only know WWE, WWF, or WWE now. Okay, let's just say make it WWE, so I won't repeat myself. And it's like they know it by only by magazines and word of mouth. So back then, the business of WWE grew. I mean, that I can believe I told the story of WrestleMania that Vince McMahon, you know, pawn, pawn. He put his house in collateral just to make WrestleMania available back then. To rent Madison Square Garden, to broadcast WrestleMania in closed circuit television, which is like the precursor to pay-per-views or PLEs now. That you have to go to a cinema or a theater to watch WrestleMania if you can go to New York. So then back then, business grew. Pro wrestling or WWE at the time became national and the business boomed. It wasn't a $1 billion business back then. It wasn't. But they reached a different height at the time in terms of pro wrestling. Then fast forward to the early 90s, uh, business went down a bit. His wrestlers starting to grow old, like wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, Ted DiBiase, Roddy Piper, Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant. They're starting to, grow old. People grow old. So, and then, new generation came. WCW hired Eric Bishop to be their executive producer first before making him the vice president of WCW next to Ted Turner, who was the rest in peace, Ted Turner. He just passed a few weeks ago. So Ted Turner owned WCW. He bought it from Jim Crockett Productions, make WCW a separate entity from NWA, had WCW compete directly with WWE, hence the Monday Night Wars. Because back then, Eric Bishop had a vision because he wasn't really prepared to go toe to toe with Vince McMahon and WWE. I know this a little bit because this is how I became aware of certain business within the pro wrestling business. So back then, according to his book, Eric Bishop's plan to expand WCW was to sell the TV rights of WCW to Rupert Murdoch for the Fox-owned networks outside the US, including here in Asia. Here in Asia, it's the Fox-owned back then was networks back then was Star TV. If you have cable, whether it's Sky Cable, Home Cable, or whatever cable company you have back then, You know what Star TV is. You have your Star Network, when you can watch like sitcoms and whatnot. Then you have your Star Sports, when you can watch any sports, basketball, soccer, and back then, including back then, was wrestling. He wanted to sell WCW's TV rights to Rupert Murdoch, but he needs Ted Turner's approval because back then Ted Turner and Rupert Murdoch were like business rivals, so they compete with each other. But you know, if it's business that will earn money for some people, they would do it. And I believe back then, even Eric Bishop believed that, yeah, Ted Turner will like approve that. But when he was about to pitch that, according to Eric Bishop's, documentary books and whatnot, the first thing that came up from Ted Turner was, how do we compete with Vince McMahon? And Eric Bishop wasn't prepared and said, give me Monday nights, give me primetime television. So it's either TBS or TNT, Turner Network Television or Turner Broadcasting System. Both are cable channels in the US. And then Ted Turner said, sure, you get Monday nights. And back then, Monday Night Raw was already programmed or broadcast in the USA Network around like the same time, 8 o'clock to, I believe back then, to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And they decided to make it like a 2 weeks. No, I think it's WCW who did the 2 week programming, 2 hour programming first. And even Eric Bishop said that, you know what, I believe I could be wrong in either, but one starts at 7:57. That's 3 minutes before the other program. So I believe, if I'm correct, since they own the network, WCW was like, let us start at 7:57 p.m. So it's 3 minutes ahead from Raw against Raw. So hence the Monday Night War. They were like up and down in terms of ratings, and I'm like, okay. So like I said, I that's the start of me like, okay, everything makes sense in terms of business. Who's making money? Who's drawing more crowds? And at the time, I can see WCW only by magazine or even like in I believe I told this story that back then here in Manila, here in the Philippines, Cartoon Network ends at 9 or 10 p.m. Manila time. Then after that, it transformed to like TNT. But back then, the TNT network here in the Philippines, it's more of like the TCM in the US, which is Turner Classic Movies. Most of the programming are classic black and white movies, even. And I believe at the time, Monday Nitro or WCW Monday Nitro uh, airs at 1 a.m. on a Saturday. That I have to be awake just to watch the programming. I'm like, oh, so there's this, that. And back then in my little mind, I'm like, oh, it's another wrestling program. Oh, there's Hulk Hogan. Because back then I can only like read magazine of, where's Hulk Hogan now? WCW, what the heck is WCW? Why are the Legion of Doom are being called the Road Warriors in wrestling magazines? And that's where I find out what WCW is or was. Ah, okay. Then reading more magazines, more books, rent VHS tapes. Then I found out about not UFC, yeah, UFC as well, and ECW. So okay, there are more than wrestling companies around there at the time. And then I found out there's New Japan Pro Wrestling, All Japan Pro Wrestling at the time. Then AWA and all of those stuff, all of those companies. And then 83 weeks came. Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, formerly known as Diesel and Razor Ramon, respectively, went from WWE, WCW. Hence the Monday Night Wars, ignited really. And the 83 weeks victory of WCW Nitro against WWE Monday Night Raw happened. I'm like, oh, okay. Then at the time WWE was even like on the verge of bankruptcy around 97, 96, 97. Because Vince McMahon lost most of his stars. He's still trying to cater around kids and or families with cartoonish storylines with what and whatnot. He still like relies to like occupational type of wrestlers like a policeman, even a hockey player. So and they're losing to like more realistic storyline of WCW, and it worked at the time for WCW. Then Vince McMahon saw what they're doing. Vince McMahon saw what ECW was doing, and he tried to do the same. He used the formula of those two other companies or even companies outside anywhere else and tried to make it his own. 1997, late 1997, WWE Attitude became to fruition. There were two catalysts of Vince McMahon's business boom in terms of pro wrestling when he got stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin on a Monday Night Raw on at Madison Square Garden during September 1997, and then what happened in Montreal in Survivor Series 1997 as well of the Montreal Screwjob that made Vince McMahon a wrestling character to Mr. McMahon. And then afterwards, April fast forward to April 1998, supposedly like the first uh, match of Mr. McMahon's career against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they ended WCW Nitro's 83 straight wins against Raw, where Raw beats WCW for the first time after 83 weeks with like a rating of 4.6 against Nitro's for 4.2. But back then the rating is different. It's like 1.0 rating is like 750,000 households. So it's still a million, more than a million. So they beat them, and afterwards business became good for WWE. They finally used the not more realistic approach of pro wrestling, but more of like they tried to abandon the family side and they catered to the 14-year-old and above, 18-year-old demographic, and they worked. Stone Cold Steve Austin became one of the most popular wrestlers of all time, along with The Rock, Undertaker, Triple H, the emergence of other stars and future stars or then Hall of Famers like Edge, Christian, the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys when they got it from them from ECW. And during this time, they were like beating WCW. I believe they defeated WCW Nitro for like more than 100 weeks, maybe 114, if I remember my magazine correctly, until they bought WCW. Now, why am I saying that it's a little bit important to know about the business side of pro wrestling? Because a lot of people are saying now that if you're a wrestling fan and you're just watching it and try to be entertained, you don't care about ratings, you don't care about their profits, their revenues, their losses. Because back then, I had friends, wrestling friend circle as well, and this is around I believe 2001 when I don't think that WWE re-signed or a new deal with Star TV, but around like early 2001, Star Sports acquired the TV deal or TV rights for WCW, and they lasted for like 3 or 4 months because around March and April of 2001, that's the time when WWE purchased or acquired the rights of WCW and its library. So it ended wrestling here in the Philippines until around like early 2000, maybe no, 2003 or 4 when Solar Sports here in the Philippines or Solar Entertainment here in the Philippines acquired the TV rights of WWE. So it's like 2 years. There's no wrestling here in the Philippines. And even for me, I just rely on the magazines again, the books, DVDs and VCDs that's being sold in Claro M Recto here in the Philippines or Isitan or Tutuban. Like, oh, wrestling is still alive, and yeah, that's the time of infancy of internet as well. That you go to WWE.com. Oh, Shawn Michaels is back around 2002. So I relied more on reading, And even back then, when WCW became like the show in Star Sports, my friends are asking me, "Where's WWE? Why is it called WCW now? Why is Diesel still wrestling and his name is Kevin Nash?" I'm like, it's business. He left WWE to go. So that's the time that I started learning about the business of pro wrestling, because it's like, okay, in my in my circle of friends, I have to be in the know instead of saying I don't know. And for me, I guess I was challenged in a way that, oh, okay, I have to know about this stuff. Hence my like curiousness about the business of pro wrestling. Why is ratings important? And I told a lot of threads. Why is rating? Why are you care? Why do people or a fan should care about ratings? Because if you don't know why something is being closed down, isn't weird that you don't know? And isn't it weird that you're just going to blame one company? Because that happened in WWE. They blamed WWE for why WCW and ECW shut down. They lost business. But they didn't know that ECW lost its business because of, mismanagement by the owner or the executives of ECW, and everyone knows that now because it's historical fact. WCW was the same, and even here in the Philippines, I believe none most people just believe that WWE was the only one who tried to purchase WCW. They didn't know that Eric Bishop tried purchasing WCW along with some business partners, as long as they have TV deal or a deal with Turner Broadcasting at the time, they want to buy it. But when they found out, the business partners, not Eric Bishop, when they found out that no, if we're going to sell you WCW, there's no TV rights. You have to choose, or you have to look for a different home or new home now. And they don't want to buy a certain business without a specific deal. And back then they were having a difficult time doing that. So yeah, those are the stories, and most people doesn't or don't know about it, doesn't know or didn't know about that. I did, I do until now because again, I read books, I get read magazines, I go to websites that talks business about pro wrestling, even business magazine like Forbes, no Wall Street Journal and whatnot. I try to understand. And now fast forward here. Now let's maybe do more like 15 minutes more. So back then, right now, what's happening pro wrestling in WWE especially? People are targeting TKO. TKO is handling this match management, and then you have other reporters saying that one reporter will say, yeah, TKO's tried to sabotage the creative business of WWE, while another blogger or whatnot reporter will say, no, they don't, because Triple H and Nick Khan told that no, all the decisions are ours. Nobody really knows the story right now. They blame people like, oh, they're on high revenue, historical revenue figures, but like I said, revenue is different from profit. Revenue, yeah, it's the total money that you earn, but after taxes, after expenses, what's left? Then that's your profit. It's so basic. It's a basic principle of revenue against profit. So they let a lot of people go, which what they call spring cleaning. Normally after WrestleMania they do spring cleaning, meaning they're letting go of people that they don't see too much value or less value at all. It sounds callous or upsetting, but it's business. It's normal practical business. I work for BPO industry for in the BPO industry for 13 14 years. I work as a freelancer now, doing good. Salary is good. I'm happy. So, but it's normal business practice. If you sign for a BPO company, they will tell you, we don't sign you as a newbie or entry level or whatnot. We sign you as a probationary. So your first 6 months is your probationary period. You don't have to sign for a contract to probational, because there's I work for a certain department store or mall here in the Philippines around 2006. I signed for like a 6-month contract. Then afterwards, I was interviewed for a panel interview to be regularized, and I have to spend like 1 month as a probationary, so work for 7 months, and if I pass the probationary period, I'm a regular employee. I had benefits and such. BPO companies work differently. They sign you immediately as a probie. Then after 6 months, if you pass all the necessary requirements, you become regularized. And if you're not performing well, they cut you. They end the contract. It's similar. It's the same, practically similar or the same with the with pro wrestling. They let go of the entire Wyatt Six. They surprisingly for me, I was even more surprised when they let Aleister Black go again, along with Selena Vega. Then of course, people were irate when they uh, cut or released Kairi Sane and the New Day. And people even say, "Oh, as if Vince McMahon was still around, those people, especially the New Day, will still be there." I'll tell you a different story about that later. So, one of the stories that people said is that TKO said that they asked for certain wrestlers, or even all, probably all, or most of the wrestlers, to restructure their deals. Restructure meaning that, okay, if I'm paying you like a million right now, and it's not working, you're not really putting much money. Can we cut your deal to 750 or even 500? So it's a half, 50%. That's the story that they said. And I'm saying the 1 million as an example. So, if you're a wrestling fan, look at the business perspective. I'm not saying that the TKO executives are good people, but I'll tell you another story about that. Or they're greedy. They're just doing what their algorithm, their metric system is showing them. Are we seeing value right now, aside from loyalty? Aside from loyalty, are we seeing too much value with this team? Let's say, for example, the New Day. And if they're not producing much number, are they value or valuable to keep? That's the question that most fans are not even asking themselves. Because if you own your own business, you will know. It's like if you even own like a store, a small store, a merchandise store, and let's say if you have a banana, is this banana worth it after 5 days? No, it will rot. So sometimes, okay, then let's not buy produce anymore, or vegetables or fruits, because they rot after this. If you go to like a normal supermarket, they're selling like produce for like, let's say, 100 pesos for like a broccoli or a banana as well in the early morning. Then if you go in the afternoon or even late at night, maybe around 8 p.m., you will see that 100 peso vegetable or fruit, it reduced to like 50 pesos, 45, because I know I was I do the grocery sometimes and I'm like, oh, it's cheaper too to buy something at night. So it's the same, practically similar, the same with pro wrestling. Are we seeing too much value for this? We're paying these people a lot of money, but they're not really producing numbers. And like I said, as callous and upsetting as it sounds, if we're going to compare New Day to like a Roman Reigns, to a Cody Rhodes, a Seth Rollins, a CM Punk, a Drew McIntyre, are they as valued as them right now? Sorry about that, but they're aging as well. They're not younger anymore, and I believe they saved more a lot of money during their almost, especially Kofi Kingston, almost his 20-year stay with WWE. Miz, people say, what about the Miz? What about the Miz? He's been in WWE for 22 years now. The first time I saw Miz was around 2023, 23 years now, when he joined Tough Enough. And are they seeing value with Miz? Yeah, Miz is a great ambassador. I'm not saying that New Day aren't, but if you're going to compare Miz to the New Day, here's the thing. New Day goes to cater to like to certain niche audience. They have their wrestling fans and they have their gaming fans. Miz is so diverse. He can be a host, he can do movies, he can do TV shows, reality shows, and whatnot. Those are values that certain companies, or especially WWE and TKO, tries to see on a certain person. It's not really, a complicated business to learn. It's so easy. If you just put logic on it and you say, yeah, it's logical. Another surprising is Kairi Sane. She was supposed to, like, a midst of a feud with Asuka and Io Sky, but they let her go. And people are conflicting issues as well of, hey, she wants to go to Japan, stay there. Nobody knows. They're not answering. So spring cleaning, that happens. Are TKO executives greedy? So let's do. I believe I told the story part. Now, okay. So when people say that Vince McMahon, if Vince McMahon is here, creative will be the same. People hated Vince creative when they had Cody Rhodes lost at WrestleMania 39. It was a Vince decision to have him lose. And before then, people are cutting Vince's head off. That creative is so terrible during the Thunderdome era. Roman Reigns was eating dog food and stuff. And they want Vince suddenly. Now, here's the story about the downsizing or restructuring of contract. It also happened during the Vince era. And how? Because during 2005, ECW had their first one night stand. And what the main event of One Night ECW One Night Stand 2005 was the Dudley Boys against Sandman and Tommy Dreamer. So it was, I believe, at the time the highest pay-per-view buy rate for WWE that year. I believe it either matched or surpassed WrestleMania 21 a little bit. And at the time, the Dudley Boys became even relevant. And they were similarly happened. They're in the midst of contract negotiations. So let's say if the Dudley Boys are being paid at the time $1 million each, Bubba Ray and Devon, they ask, "Can we cut your contract because we're paying you a lot?" And Bubba Ray said, along with Devon, "Thanks, but no thanks." According to the interview, Bubba Ray said that they WWE even cried poverty that they're losing money at the time. And we're like, I don't know, probably yes. Because John Cena wasn't John Cena yet. He was starting to just become John Cena. And then Christian did the same. And yeah, so it's not news anymore of contract restructuring. It happens most of the time. Even the NBA, even in the NFL, even in the NHL, even in the MLB. If you don't have that much value anymore, most of the time that the business will try to restructure your contract and pay you less. So, not everyone can be LeBron James. Again, that's my what I'm trying to say. Then another story. Why are the executives really greedy? There's one interview from Cody Rhodes, and before he left WWE around 2016 or 17, one of his questions was, why are George Barrios and Wilson, which were presidents of WWE at the time, so they worked behind or beside Vince McMahon running WWE, why are they getting paid millions of dollars when they're not even lacing a wrestling boot when they haven't wrestled at all? In his mind, wrestlers should be paid a lot. That was his question. Why are executives being paid a lot of money when they haven't wrestled or tried the product themselves? Then he left, went to the Indies. Fast forward, he became executive vice president of AEW. Started it with Tony Khan and the Elite, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, and he told the interviewer, I believe it's Chris Van Vliet, that, and then I found out why those executives are being paid millions of dollars because their job aren't easy. The vision or how they run the business aren't easy at all. That's what he said. And it came from Cody Rhodes. And he said that I finally respected those executives because the work is not easy. So are TKO executives greedy? We don't know. Of course they got paid. There are like only a few executives that I know, business executives I know that didn't take money in terms of being salaried. A prime example is Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. He doesn't get a salary from running Facebook and Meta. He gets his money from the stocks or his ownership on Facebook. Doesn't get any salary at all. Of course, TKO, right now, TKO or Endeavor, they're in debt because, like any business in the US, it's different here in the Philippines. Here in the Philippines, you can save a lot of money, start your own business if you can. In the States, it's different. They have to loan from other financial institution. Endeavor did the same. They file for loans and whatnot from other financial institution to purchase WWE. Back then, they purchased UFC for $4 billion from the Fertitas, from Zuffa. Then they obviously they bought WWE from Vince McMahon for 9.3 or 9.6 billion dollars. They are in debt. Of course, if I'm a business owner, I don't want my return of investment to come back after 10 years or 20 years or so. That's why a lot of business people right now, especially like Mark Shapiro said, we're just pricing the audience right now. We're hopefully, I believe that's one of his quotes, quote unquote. What hopefully we can, divert back after 2 years. And a lot of it's like I said, it's business sense, and people hated of why WWE was back in Las Vegas after being in Las Vegas last year. I believe it became of the highest bidding. I think that I guess the stories was a little bit vague. New Orleans bidding of WrestleMania was a little bit short, or the financial income was a little bit short compared to Las Vegas. So that's the reason why they choose Las Vegas. And Mark Shapiro himself, the CEO of TKO, said, "I made a mistake. I definitely made a mistake of bringing WrestleMania back to Las Vegas. But next year, WrestleMania will be in Saudi, and it was implied or heavily rumored that Saudi 2028 will be the last year of WWE's deal with the Saudi government or Riyadh season, and it's heavily rumored that they're getting paid $250 million for the back-to-back WrestleMania nights in Saudi Arabia. Who wouldn't want that if you're a wrestler? So another story. Let's make this quick. People are saying that WrestleMania is supposed to be WrestleMania. WrestleMania has lost its luster. I don't think so. If you are a fan, and like I said, even though I like the business of wrestling, I am a fan. I'm a consumer type of fan. I buy T-shirts, I buy action figures, I buy my wrestling belts and other stuff. So I am a consumer, and those money goes to WWE or TKO. I should complain, but I like wrestling. I like WWE, especially WWE. And to be fair and honest, and this is my opinion, and anybody can agree or not, WrestleMania is no longer their financial center like when Vince was running things. WrestleMania right now is their, sure, it's still their Super Bowl or Oscar night and whatnot, but it's no longer their financial center. Their TV deals, their streaming, and their media rights are their financial center. How much is Netflix paying WWE for the next 10 years? $5 billion for their streaming rights. So it's like 500 million per year for Netflix. I believe it's 250 plus for SmackDown in the USA Network, and it's 385 million, I believe, from ESPN. That's $1 billion just for those media rights, and I didn't even include CW has like 150 for like 5 years, so it's like 30 million for the development. But SmackDown, Raw, and PLEs, they're getting a billion for those, and that's not even sponsors are not even included. It's not WWE's fault why WrestleMania was so full of ads, advertisements or commercials. It's because ESPN need their money back, and sponsors are a lot of money. If they're paying 385 million per year for the PLEs, they're probably getting double or at least 500 million. So that's 385, but 125 million on revenue for ads alone. That's a theory, but it's still a possible theory. So that's how should a wrestling fan think about the business. Why you should care. Another story right now. I'll make it this quick. Let's make it 43 or 45 minutes. Oh, it's one of the longest episodes I had it. So there's like this recent interview that Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, was asked a question: is AEW profitable? And his answer was like the normal Tony Khan. I'm not bashing him anymore. And his typical answer was like, our revenue is, great right now, or our revenue is big. It's our record revenue, but he didn't answer anything if AEW is currently profitable. Because certain wrestling journalists said that AEW is profitable, certain AEW wrestlers saying that they're hot and they're profitable, but the owner and the president of AEW didn't say at all that AEW is profitable. Nothing at all. So that's it. We don't know about anything. If you have to learn, it's fine. It's easy to learn. Business economics in wrestling, it's easy to learn and understand. It's just your matter of how you accept it. And for me, I accept it as a fan. I'm still a fan. I still watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, PLEs. Like I said, I don't watch AEW right now as much as I want because it's not my cup of tea or cup of coffee or cup of soft drinks anymore. It's not my thing. I guess WWE is still my thing. DC Comics is still my thing. Marvel is still my thing. All other pop culture, not AEW at the moment. If I want to watch AEW just to, entertain myself, I watch the previous programming from 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. That's it. Then afterwards, nah, it's not for me anymore. Still, for me, my favorite AEW match was Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Runnels or Dustin Rhodes at Double or Nothing 2019. Still my favorite AEW match. Afterwards, it's the Kenny Omega Hangman Page and I guess it's Full Gear against the Bucks. Those are my favorite matches. I like those matches. I even like Orange Cassidy versus uh, John Moxley. I'm still a fan. Always will be. And then for me, I just like learning the side of business because it's to me it's as entertaining as the what wrestling or storylines are happening as well. So yeah, 43 minutes and counting, but this is one of the longest episode of the podcast, Riptor Podcast. Bad takes with Coach 23. Probably I'll do another show tomorrow if I'm up to it, and probably do a podcast with my other friends if I'm up to it as well because my job, my freelance job, really entails a lot from me. But yeah, so that's it. That's my opinion. You can like it, you cannot. I don't, you know, yeah. So yeah, thank you for watching, listening to the podcast, Riptor Podcast. Bad takes with Coach 23. I'll see you guys soon, and adios.